Thank you for watching. I'm here with U.S. Senate candidate Alan Way. We're talking about foreign policy, foreign relations there. We're talking about ISIL and how they grew and all that before we went for break. Pretty devastating situation for the Middle East right now. I think any administration, even the future ones.
It's an absolute train wreck.
Correct.
It's an absolute train wreck. Yeah. We contributed to it. During the break, I made mention, and I want to say this for all, to think I'm just picking on the administration exclusively. The recently deposed Iraqi Prime Minister al-Maliki was totally inept and sectarian to the point where he wanted to exclude the Sunni politicians from his government, and that didn't play out too well, and he contributed to the problem. He contributed to the problem. We contributed to the problem. Had we completed the status of forces agreement that the administration did not complete and could have, and left behind a residual force, both for training purposes and a small element of special operators that would have continued to go after the high-value targets, the ISIL threat would not be where it is today. It would not be there. And it's unfortunate that it is. So now we've got to deal with the way it is now. And
well, they're saying it's going to take years before it gets stabilized.
You know,
I don't think you can get rid of it. We got 80,000 strong, and there's people joining them every single day.
You know,
and then they're well financed. You got,
it's not as if you do nothing, it's going to take years. If you sit on your hands and say, "Oh, woe is me, things are falling apart, hair on fire," things will get worse.
It's currently
bold, aggressive action.
Correct.
Fixes things.
He's trying to get congressional approval to go do airstrikes now. I think this is where the administration...
Airstrikes. Airstrikes are one tool in a commander's kit bag. We don't have a national strategy to deal with the threat.
Correct.
We need a national strategy, then we need to turn it over to Central Command and say, come up with a plan that will achieve the national strategy. And then it's up to the Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States, to approve the plan. But it's up to the commanders to present the plan.
Correct.
Shame on the Commander-in-Chief if he decides to take pieces of the plan, because those are politically expedient. That's not how you conduct armed conflict.
So what would you do? Would you put troops on the ground at this point? Because we don't have the will here to put troops on the ground.
I wouldn't say I would put troops on the ground. First, I haven't had an current intelligence briefing of exactly what's taking place on the ground, although I do get open source intelligence daily. But the fact is, nothing should be off the table. Everything should be on the table, and you don't start out every day in a press conference by telling the world what you're not going to do.
Because it sends the wrong signal.
Absolutely it does.
I agree with you on that. Yeah.
That's the first thing they do. They get up and the White House spokesman says, well, we're not going to do this. Why doesn't he just shut up and leave it to people's imagination what we can do if we choose to? And let's start to intimidate the bad guys.
So you think there's a deficiency in announcing what it is that you...
No question.
No doubt about
There
it.
Goes back to the rookies. I told you there's rookies
I
back
would
there.
agree with you on that. Okay, let's move to Ukraine. I know we're talking, we don't have very much time. As far as, I wanted to come back to the U.S. economy and all that, and then come back to the New Mexico situation with all the economic stuff going on here. Ukraine, Putin flexing his muscles there, moving into Crimea. Exactly. Crimea is gone.
Crimea is gone.
It's safe to say Crimea is gone. Now he's moving into eastern Ukraine.
That's right.
And I'm not asking you for any kind of a strategy there, but what would you do as far as we're not able to put troops on the ground there, correct? So how would he deal with such a thing where we're unable to put, if NATO has an agreement with Russia not to put troops, permanent troops in any of the NATO countries, the new members there.
Which is baloney.
And we can bypass that.
Which is baloney.
They can bypass that.
You know, Putin does what Putin wants to do, but we can't do what's in our best interest? Now, what kind of an arrangement is that? And so anybody who'd acquiesce to Vladimir Putin under those circumstances is a weak leader.
So what is your opinion as far as...
Well, let me tell you, if you'll just let me talk.
Sure.
I'm going to turn around and we're going to put intelligence behind the Ukrainian military, and we give them equipment. We haven't given them any equipment. You know what we sent them? MREs. Now, come on. We can do better than that. If you're serious about helping them defend themselves, help equip them. And we haven't done that.
So you would equip, and then we can't put, once again, we can't put troops on the ground there. Because that would, the agreement with Russia, 20 years ago, we signed an agreement with the
here's the deal.
NATO, Russia
Here's the deal
act.
with dealing with the Russians.
Yeah.
They expect us to keep the agreement, and they don't keep the agreement.
Correct. They're not keeping it.
All right.
And I think
Well,
there's
then that abrogates the agreement.
correct.
If they break the agreement, then we can do anything we want to do.
And it's made to look like it's the Russian separatists.
course.
And it's all the people on the eastern side, and the Crimea was all
Vladimir
Russian.
Putin is pushing around Barack Obama like a little play doll, and it's embarrassing.
But what would you do with a nation that has nuclear weapons? We can't just go all-out war with them. We can't put troops on the ground, start fighting with the Russians. So there has to be a medium there where you're dealing with them on, yes, like you say, you could provide them with defensive weapons, things of that sort. We can bypass that agreement that NATO and Russia made 20 years ago where we're not supposed to have
They've got
any kind
nuclear
of-
weapons, we've got nuclear weapons.
Okay.
Those are deterrents. They're deterrents to use the weapons. That's why you need to keep them out of the hands of the Iranians, because the jihadists
Correct.
and the radicals in the Middle East have no such deterrents.
Okay. So your strategy would be to have aid the
Well,
Ukrainians
I
in some
don't have
ways.
a strategy per se. You're asking me for thoughts, and I'm giving you my thoughts on things we could do that we haven't done that we should be doing. And those are just great examples of some of the things we could have done.
And there is, I think, with any administration, there would be some issues there as far as putting troops on the ground, things like that, because, it's...
And everybody brings up
Yeah.
troops on the ground, troops on the ground. It's a mantra. Everything should be on the table. Nothing should be off the table. And let me just end this little discussion, because people love to ask me, because I'm a Marine, and they expect me to come up like to the right of a tail of a hen, a tail of a hun, that we're going to do this and we're going to do that. I am the last guy to use troops and put them in harm's way.
Yeah, because you've been there.
Because I've been there.
Exactly, yes.
It's the people who've never been there that are always the first to use them. I am very deliberative. I want a strategy. Remember the comment about the strategy?
Correct.
I want a strategy, and I want a plan that achieves the strategy.
Okay.
I want to use troops last. I want to use armed force last. When foreign policy fails, ultimately, that's when armed conflicts begin, because you failed diplomatically.
Okay.
But we can't make diplomacy a fool's errand either.
I think personally, the Russians are acting in self-preservation. He's a little panicked, I think. He's trying to grow. He's been very nostalgic. He's been wanting to grow. He misses the old Soviet Union. So there is a lot of that play
true,
there.
he does.
He does miss it, and he would like to bring it back. And I think that's...
But he's bullying around our president.
Well,
and getting away with it.
I think he's trying to see what he can get away with.
And he's
So
getting
anyways,
away with more than he should have.
quite a bit, yeah. Okay, so let's come back to the United States. I know we were out there for a little while.
We were way out there.
We're out there, yes. So let's come back to the United States. U.S. economy.
U.S. economy.
We're seeing some green shoots there as far as the overall economy.
The recovery in GDP is not as good as it should have been.
Correct,
And,
yeah.
and bear in mind, I know we didn't talk about my background when we opened up this segment. Obviously, we went into foreign policy because of my service in the region and my
Well, we'd like to
service
know.
as a
You're a
Marine
decorated,
officer.
correct, yes.
But I'm also a businessman.
Correct.
Because I built a business in and around my Marine Corps Reserve career. And I understand economics 101 pretty well. I'll never teach it in a college, don't want to, but I understand how to create jobs, and I understand how to cover payroll. That I understand.
Yeah, well, you ran a business for 30 years.
Yes,
so
I did.
You have a lot of experience there. But I'm not asking for any kind of, exact answers as far as the economy goes. Your opinion in the overall economy, we could do
We can be doing better. We should be doing better. We're not, the economy hasn't recovered to the point where we're now able to create employment, recoup all the lost jobs, and then create jobs for the people coming into the workforce. Bear in mind, every June, and I use June as a representative example, you have high school graduates who are going to enter the workforce, and you have college graduates enter the workforce. Well, not only did we have a massive unemployment as a result of the recession that we still haven't fully recovered from, but we've still got to create an economy that creates jobs for the kids going forward.
correct. Yeah. Okay, so that's overall the national there.
But
and
let me talk about New Mexico.
Sure.
You're talking national.
No, we're coming back to New Mexico. I was going to ask you about that. New Mexico, when the current governor came in, she came in a very deep recession, by the way. You put anybody in that position, I don't think they can hold on too long with it. She implemented certain, measures there, all right? And I think we'll talk a little bit more. I would have to go to a break, but New Mexico economy is still coming out, and it's still...
We're 2%.
We're
2%
like,
recovery, far behind the other
correct,
states
yeah,
around us.
Yes, and we have a long ways to go. But I'll get your thoughts when we
Okay.
on the other side of the break, okay?
Right.
Just hang. Okay, take a short break. We'll be right back, guys.